Jade.
That's interesting. But T. Wood, I was told that you were laughing hysterically at those comments. What is so funny?
Well, listen, Lewis knows this. It's rare that you see Bill kind of heap that type of going to depth with players like that, particularly during the season. So just listening to it, it was real funny to me. But in all seriousness, anytime Bill talks like that, you've obviously struck something within him. And I think it speaks to what Cam is bringing to New England. He talked about a energy, a fresh new energy, and that's what Cam is really all about. He has an energy. Guys tend to gravitate towards him, and Coach Belichick is doing a heck of a job coaching up this team. We know the limitations that they have on offense, but obviously Cam is a driving factor on that team.
Yeah, and I think that the sign of a great coach is knowing which buttons to push with individual players, and maybe that is what he feels Cam Newton needs as they try to make a second half run here, which they could do. Louis Riddick, you said last week you thought they were ready to make a little bit of a second half push, and then they went out and they beat Baltimore. Do you see this team making a playoff push over the next 6 weeks?
Yeah, I would not count them out at all. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that there is that intangible that this team has that Bill's talking about when he's referencing Cam Newton right there that you can't really quantify objectively. You can't. And so I know it's easy to bang on this football team and go, well, just look at the weapons that they have out on the perimeter and look at the lack of weapons that they have at the tight end position that they historically have had. Look at all the deficiencies they have up front in the front seven, all the people who have opted out, they can't stop the run, etc. Well, what they did against Baltimore in adverse conditions up there in typical New England weather was vintage Patriots, vintage Bill Belichick, and I think it is all stemming from that energy that Cam has and that he brings, and I think he is laying to rest a lot of the preconceptions that people have about him as far as him being an I guy versus a team guy, because he has put that team on his back, and they seem to like it like that. And I would not count this team out in any way, shape, or form going down the pipe here.
Again, you're talking as a guy who just had them 2 weeks ago on Monday Night Football, so you're sort of intimately familiar with the dynamics that are going on there. Shefty, what are you hearing coming out of Foxborough?
Well, this is a situation where there's a Patriot team that usually gets better, and there are a lot of people that were doubting this team, getting on this team, criticizing this team. That usually is when this team rises up and does its best work. Now, look, this team still is missing weapons, but Jacoby Myers has developed into a playmaking wide receiver, and Damien Harris has developed into what looks like their number one back. And so they're slowly getting more and more contributions from people that ordinarily have not been a part of that offense. If I would have said to you at the beginning of the year that Cam Newton, Damien Harris, and Jacoby Myers would be the keys to this New England team making a charge, that might have surprised you some.
Exactly right. And there they were at 2-5.
And Julian Edelman may be coming back, right?
At some point in time, not far away.
Here they are with a chance to, in a game in which they are favored, to get themselves back to 500 as we get to Thanksgiving, and we'll see what they can put together. Meanwhile, it is time right now for Dominique and his, Shefty's got a call, could be big news.
Hey.
Meanwhile, Dominique and the unique perspective.
Ready or not, tell him here I come. Ready or not, tell him here I come.
Look at me, I'm handsome, fast, quick. Doesn't take much for me to, I'm modest, humble, Doesn't take much for me to be confident.
Every week at this time, our man Dominique brings us his unique perspective. What do we have today, Mr. Foxworth?
Jameis Winston makes the Saints potentially more dangerous and a better Super Bowl contending team than Drew Brees. I know how crazy it sounds because Drew Brees is great. And I know that Himbo put up those great stats earlier about what what Drew Brees was before Sean Payton. It was a lot like Jameis Winston. So if Sean Payton can bring the best, I got emoji face. We got emoji face. So if Sean Payton can bring out the best in Jameis Winston, I promise you, as a defensive player, what is scarier is the big play ability. And it is so hard when you go into defensive meeting rooms, you prep for a game, you're thinking about how to stop big plays, because all of us on defense, the thing that we say over and over again is they can't score without big plays. You cannot have a team that's going to complete 13 passes in a row and go 5 yards a pop all the way down the field consistently. I know that Drew Brees seems to be able to do that, but it's getting harder as he gets older. And Jameis Winston has the highest average yards per completion in the league, the second highest, second to Patrick Mahomes. And in this system, hopefully Sean Payton can bring the best out of him. I promise you that Jameis Winston, in some ways, in some of the most important ways, is scarier to prepare for than those dink and dunk passes that you're going to get from Drew Brees. And Drew Brees finds ways to hit the seam and make big plays, but it's a lot more difficult to play defense when you have to cover the entire field than when you are focused on getting these slants or these screen passes to Alvin Kamara. It's a lot scarier when you add the deep threat to that. So if Sean Payton can coach the turnovers out of Jameis Winston, that offense is a lot scarier with Jameis and that big arm than it is with Drew Brees. I know it sounds crazy.
No, I mean, it doesn't sound crazy. It sounds like what we've been saying forever, which is if Jameis just stops throwing the ball to the other team, he'd be an unbelievably good quarterback. But that remains the enormous if in all of this. Lewis, I understand the point that he's making, but I couldn't help but notice the look on your face. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I understand the point he's making too. And early in the football season here in 2020, Sean has talked about the fact that they need to have that deep field, down the field, explosive 20-plus yard play component to their offense in order for them to really get over the top and be that dominant offensive juggernaut that they want to be. He needs that, and they have been calling those plays. For whatever reason, they haven't been able to hit them early in the year. Now, Jameis, will pull the trigger. He will launch it down the field, and I don't have any doubt that you would probably see more deep shots if he was as the starting quarterback than Drew. I just think Jameis is wired that way. What's interesting, though, is that when Hembo gave me this statistic about the fact that Jameis actually struggled in the intermediate and short areas of the field as far as his efficiency in turning the ball over, that philosophically, though, is where Sean Payton wants to live. That's where their offense has become what it is. So if he's turning the football over